Getting to the top is optional. Getting down is mandatory.
You can push, but you need to kind of know when to stop and turn around, especially when we talk about mountaineering. There is just so little room for error, and the consequences are so high.
Getting home is mandatory.
Yeah, because that's what we remember.
Spartans, listen up.
We need to sleep better. So how do you sleep better? Never thought about it before. And so I met Jack, I met Essentia. Pay attention to the mattress you sleep on because it's loaded with chemicals.
Recovery, cooling, and pressure relief, all in one mattress. Up to 60% more deep and REM sleep. Less inflammation, faster bounce back. No toxins, no EMFs, no BS.
My buddy Jack over at Essentia, he's kind enough to give us a code for the Spartan community. That's DECA, that's Tough Mudder, all of us. Use Spartan25, get a discount. Prioritize your sleep so you can sleep faster, you can do more burpees, you can train more, you can get healthier. When you sleep well, you live well.
Joe De Sena, CEO, founder of Spartan, host of the Hard Way podcast. I got the ultimate hard guy on here, David Göttler. He's sitting in Chamonix, just got off the mountain. Do you still have all your fingers and toes today, David?
Hey, Joe, good to see you. Yes, that's something I'm really proud of, that I have, after many expeditions and years in the mountain, all my toes and all my fingers. So I can only show you the fingers now.
I love it. That means you're not pushing hard enough, I guess, or you're extremely detail oriented around the way you tackle these things.
I think it's more about really, you can push, but you need to kind of know when to stop and turn around, especially when we talk about mountaineering, whereas there is just so little room for error, and the consequences are so high. Because when I'm up there in the mountains and I make the wrong decision and push a little bit too far, and I've seen it so many times. I have so many people coming off the mountains with frozen fingers, frozen hands, and in the end, for me, that's just not worth it. And I think you just need to, be able, with a lot of experience and as well a little bit of luck, to not push it that far.
I remember reading I got into climbing 2005. I had done a bunch of adventure races, and maybe a friend of mine who's no longer with us, you might have bumped into a guy named Noel Hanna. And Noel was an Irish climber, and he and I were in 2005, we were going to try to set a world record and climb the 7 highest peaks and race to sea level. The first mountain was Aconcagua. And what I found on that first mountain was you could easily become complacent if it happens to be a sunny day and everything's going well and you have your food. You're not necessarily thinking about the consequences that you just described that could come so quickly.
It's like in a blink, suddenly you find yourself in a situation where you have to pull the plug because it's not aligning anymore with what you predicted will happen on the mountain. And that is something which is sometimes really hard, and especially if you don't have the experience of slowly really raising your own bar in the mountains, which is something I can just always give as an advice to people who are new to that sport, that you just always really hang your toes a tiny little bit over the edge of what your limit is and go these tiny steps, because the consequences are just so much more than in any other sport, because it's very, very quickly you pay with your life out there.
You know, I love this saying from an American climber you probably know: getting to the top is optional, getting down is mandatory.
Definitely. I agree 100% on that. You want to push it always a little bit further, but I have a good example. In 2019 was the first year I tried to summit Everest without oxygen, without a Sherpa. And so I carried all my stuff. I used the fixed rope. I used the track there. All these other people do. But I knew without oxygen, without a Sherpa having a spare bottle for me or emergency one, I cannot afford to stand in line towards the summit, because the moment I stop and I don't go my very, very slow pace, and I don't have the freedom to turn around and immediately go down as fast as I can, I will pay a very high price if I get stuck up there. And I arrived at the south summit which is 100 meter, I don't know in feet, like really literally just below the main summit. And you see the summit just in front of you. But I saw as well a line of people there. So I turned around. I had to make this decision to turn around so close before the summit. And like you said, the investment for me at that point is immense, like years of training, the costs, the patient, the waiting, the training, the mental kind of energy you put in these projects. You know this when you have these big projects and you're so close, and you have to accept that you turn around, because what would be the alternative? To try it, to push it, and then for sure I lose my toes, my fingers, or I sit there forever like it happened. And so I turned around, and it was frustrating and disappointing, but I knew it was the right call. And I was not angry about the people there, because everybody has the right to climb Everest or whatever other mountain, in whatever style you want. And I came back in 21. Again, I didn't make it. And then in 22, finally, I managed to climb Everest without oxygen, without Sherpa. And I had a day where I was completely alone in the end on the mountain. So it paid off, over long term. But in that first moment, you forget this. And for me, to turn around is always when you are able to reflect on why you had to turn around, it's not a failure. It's a chance to come back and be better prepared, come back and learn. And then I took so much of this first try there. And if I wouldn't have had this learning, maybe I wouldn't have even made it to the summit, even it was so close. So that's for me always a very good example of that. Yeah, even if you're as close as 100 meter or 100 feet to the summit, you need to be able to turn around if a red flag comes up. And the really tricky part is up there, you think that you're totally sharp and on point. But I have many examples, especially when I film myself and I bring down this footage where I realize, oh, something is wrong. For example, exactly in this year, I also have 2 pictures of me, one where I wear sunglasses, others where I wear ski goggles. And it made sense from the daytime, from the weather, to change it from one to the other. But for that to be changed, I had to take off my backpack. I had to open 2 buckles on my backpack, open the backpack, change from the ski goggles to the sunglasses, take the sunglasses away. And I can't remember the moment I did this. And this is, normally I can remember these moments when you do this much of kind of, or taking down a backpack, you open, and I can't remember. I'm thinking up today, when was this moment where I changed it? So, and this just shows you, even you think you're totally sharp and good up there, you are not this kind of, really there, or you have these gaps.
And for those that are watching and listening, this is so important, because I want you to think about, when you go to bed at night, you might have a plan to work out in the morning, and you told yourself that's the plan. And 99% of the people, they go back to bed. They can't even stick to a plan in a room that's heated and they're thinking clearly and everything's comfortable. They can't even stick to the plan. So could you imagine how hard it is to stick to the plan at 20,000 feet with no oxygen? I can't tell. We've had 15 million people do a Spartan or Tough Mudder somewhere in the world. 15 million. There's been so many that go off and climb Mount Everest because of the training of, with obstacles. Some have rowed rowboats across the Atlantic Ocean. Some have bicycled across the United States or Europe, right? So it's not that we have anything special. It's just that when you get off your couch and you go outside and you practice with obstacles and you see what you're capable of, then the world is then you could do anything. But you have to remember the things you said in the beginning. You have to remember that getting down is mandatory. Getting home is mandatory.
That is just really hard to keep that also up there, kind of on your radar, and that is something I think again comes only with great mentorship and training with people who are already kind of a little bit up in that game you play out there. And And for me, that was always where I was really grateful that I had a really great mentors in my career always, which kind of, showed me just by example, by taking me along and training me in that way, like, where is that point?
And it's so applicable in real life. So think about those moments for those people out there, whether it's in marriage or in your career or your business. When you're in clear mind, when everything is working perfectly, you write down your rules, and you don't, make decisions when you're low on oxygen or not thinking clearly. You and I talked a little bit about you writing a book someday. I think we have to call it Keeping Your Fingers and Toes.
Yeah, that's good. I hope I stick to that. Yeah.
So what have been like the toughest things for you to do? Was it turning around when you didn't want to? Was it, give me some examples that the people at home could apply to their life where, I don't know, you were scared, you didn't want to continue, you didn't want to turn around, and how you worked through it.
I mean, I have many points here. I mean, to be scared is something for me which is absolutely essential and even like life securing in that way, because if I'm scared, something is wrong, and that's like an indicator that I need to like step back and kind of analyze why I'm scared. So it's never for another reason, and so to be fearful, I think it's a very good instinct which you should never suppress in that way, and you should analyze it. And I do this also with my team when I'm on the mountain. I always like really demand that we have a very open communication about fear, about everything, but especially fear. And if one of us feels that, we stop and we analyze. And it could be many reasons. Sometimes you're on a different fear level just because you got a bad text from your family at home or something like this, which influences you again on your decision making, risk taking on the mountain. So, and then we analyze it. And if we come to a conclusion, it's because of this or that, and we find a way around, it's great. For sure, the toughest moments, coming back to your question, one was where I had to turn around on a mountain called Nanga Parbat, the 8,000 meter peak, which I tried at that point already the third time, like 3 years already. The third year I was there, I had to turn around, and I couldn't blame it on any external factors. It was just because I felt something was off. I just didn't have it in my legs. And I was with this climbing partner who was really, really strong. And he could have gone pretty sure to the summit. And so, but as a team, you're tied together. That's kind of what you signed up there when you go to these mountains. And so I made him as well turn around. And that was the hardest and toughest kind of moment of turning around, in the sense that it really kind of bruised my ego, because, you think, hey, dude, I'm the big, alpinist superstar, and suddenly I just didn't have it. And up there, you can't fake it. This is the brutal thing in when you're really fighting with the nature, that you can't kind of just pretend that it's good, And again, there were no alternative. I couldn't push further and further, because then we were sitting alone at one point, and nobody can help you there. It's not that you can call an ambulance up there. Nothing comes, no helicopter, it's too high. And so in the end, that was really a moment where I had to rebuild ego for a little bit, and was a tough one, but it was the right decision. And in the end, I learned of that, and I think it's also, for me, was a really good lesson to see that even you have to accept that sometimes your ego gets bruised, but it brings something to the table that moves you forward as a person and as an athlete.
We've discussed the hard way. We understand the scientific benefits. We understand the mental benefits. We understand the unexplainable benefits of doing the hard things. I want you to use the code word podcast and sign up for something hard with us. Because when you get a date on the calendar,
your entire being is forced to go to bed early, to wake up early, to put the device down, to not do the drinking. Use the code word podcast. Get signed up for something hard. We care about changing lives here. We don't care about your money. Code word podcast. Get signed up. Let's go.
That's even a better story than my analogy, my example of having to turn around 100 meters from the top. You had to turn around and be embarrassed in front of this guy, and he had so much invested, and he doesn't want to turn. Like, that's even harder. So it just shows that you're a pretty big man. Now, I wrote a book called Extreme Balance. Isn't it difficult to decide, are you just being a wimp and you could push through, or are you legitimately tired? You know what I mean? Because the brain, your brain, and even his brain is saying, let's go down and go get hamburgers. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, so that's a delicate balance. That's a tough one.
Yes, it is. And I have this often, I try, the other thing, what I really tried is to fly off with a very small paraglider with a wing off these mountains. It's for me kind of the most elegant way, and something which really challenged me. And I have a huge respect of this flying down with a paraglider of these 8,000 meter peaks and from everywhere, from flying in general. And there I always feel this inner dialogue with myself of like, hey, do I just really, I'm a wimp at this moment, like you said now, and just or is the wind, is the conditions really too strong? And I know there I always call myself, hey, in flying, I'm a little bit of a wimp, because I also know, again, I have so many friends who crashed, who had terrific accidents. And so I just don't want to push that there in the same way, where in mountaineering, I started with 7 years. When I was 7 years old, I grew up and was born in Munich, Germany. And with my father, he was a really good alpinist. He took me out in the mountains all the time. And I learned it from, the same time I learned biking or whatever. So I was always part of my life. And so I feel very comfortable in it, and also very comfortable in ways of really judging risk. And when I see then this kind of new thing flying, I definitely know I hold back if it comes to that hard decision of like, hey, can I push a little bit further or not? Because I'm not this of a brave person in that regard, which so far I'm okay with it.
What would you say to people listening or watching that are thinking, this guy's nuts? Why do you need to climb mountain? We could watch it on TV. I know you have a movie coming out. We could watch it. We don't need to go do this. What would you say?
These moments I experience there, I live through, make me so alive, fulfill me so much, which I haven't had in any other way in my life. And for me, that's what I found there. And I think this really pure challenge with Mother Nature, and it's not even a challenge you're against nature. You need to be one with nature out there to really be, I think, successful. And that's something which I just would then, reply and challenge everybody to at least try it one time out there. And the beauty is, out there, you can find your own Everest just behind your house somewhere. You don't need much for that same experience, which I have when I stand on top of Mount Everest and finally summit it after 3 attempts. If you climb or just hike somewhere to the summit of a mountain to a viewpoint, and you see this landscape kind of, unfolding in front of you, is every time it gets me. I mean, the other day I was in Denver and in Golden, like above there, and you watch out and you look into these plains in the wide open space, and it was brisk cold air, and I mean, you feel so alive. That's why I do it.
The only hard thing that you'll ever regret is the one you didn't do. Parenting. Let's talk about parenting. What do you recommend the parents do so that maybe their kids and the next generation has a little more David in them Is it more telephones than popcorn? What do you recommend?
Well, I mean, I think you need to let them become explorers in whatever way, and give them as many like possibilities to experience stuff. And you don't need to be, I think, always the best there and everything, but let them try things, or try to also that they're not afraid to get out of their comfort zone. I think nowadays we fear so much to kind of get out of our comfort zone, and that's what I also see often with parents and their kids. It's so protective. It's never make them uncomfortable, and that's, I think, wrong. You need to let them explore that, and also fail. Like I said, failure is part of growing, of making something bigger, making an innovation, and pushing your own boundaries. Failure need to happen there, and that's what we need way more to start to celebrate in our society than only this pure success.
There's a lot of success when you're watching it on a screen, but when you go outside and actually do it yourself, you fail often, and in that failure, you become better. By the way, you and I, think about the story you leaned into. You wanted to tell us about the failures. The stories we're going to tell when we're 90-something years old are the challenges, the failures, the tough times. We're not going to always talk about the times we got the medal and it was beautiful and we had ice cream. Like, that's not the stuff we're going to talk about.
Yeah, because that's what we remember. That's what kind of really defines us, these kind of low points and the kind of really tough challenges, and when we had to turn around and then come back.
Well, you're awesome. How do people find you?
Well, the easiest way to find me is on Instagram, is David_Goettler.
Do you know the name of the movie yet when it comes out?
No, we haven't have a title yet. It's about my Nanga Parbat adventure, and I was there 2013, the first time, and now last year in 25, I finally summited and climbed it and could fly off with the paraglider from very near to the top. So that will be the movie about all this kind of 12 years, 13 years covering that challenge, which I am now finally managed to pull off, and I hope it inspires people and people like it. I'm nervous because it's my first big movie kind of putting out there, so let's see.
I had Jimmy Chin on this podcast many years ago, before he was super famous, so you're going to be big time.